Welcome to CEC Gurukul Lectures. I am Dr. Kumar Shantanu from Department of Botany, Deshbandhu College. In this series of lectures on archegoniads, we have covered a journey into the basic processes of origin and evolution of pteridophytes. We have also understood a very popular theory given by a biologist Zimmermann called as the telome theory. We have seen 5 different elementary processes which are considered to have given rise to various modifications and various body structural organization amongst higher pteridophytes, and then further the evolution has taken place and the complexity of body organization has gone very high. In this continuation, we will try to understand what are the various benefits of telome theory, what are the advantages and what are the limitations of telome theory. So, the telome theory illustrates the origin and evolution of sporophyte of land plants to a great extent, whereas it does not describe the formation of whorled and spiral arrangement of sporangia, which is found in some ancient and primitive plants. The telome theory provides the details of the structure of the sporophyte of earliest known land plants, whereas this does not fit into the pattern of origin of Lycopsida. As far as telome theory is concerned, it clarifies that the entire sporophyte is an axis containing root and shoot. It also explains the exact position and relationship between root, stem and leaves. But telome theory does not explain how a telome-like characteristic body has been developed. Telome theory highlights the phylogenetic relationship between fossil and living taxa. This theory elucidates the evolution of vegetative and reproductive structures of chordateles. But at the same time, this theory was criticized because it fails to explain the derivation of dictyostelic condition. Now, having understood various aspects of telome theory, let us move on to a very prominent aspect of pteridophyte biology, that is the vascular system. The vascular system in pteridophytes can also be termed as the stellar system. The central vascular cylinder of the primary axis of pteridophytes is usually referred to as stele. Stele means column. It includes xylem and phloem and pith, if at all it is present. The stele is delimited from the cortex by a layer of cell called as pericycle. The concept of vascular system as a fundamental unit was proposed by Van Tiemann and Dolliot way back in 1886. They proposed stellar theory, stating that the root and stem have the same basic structure consisting of cortex and central cylinder and endodermis. Endodermis is innermost layer of the cortex, and these layers of cells and especially endodermis makes the anatomical boundary between the stele and the cortex. A distinct endodermis is present between the cortex and stele in pteridophytes. However, in higher plants, usually they lack a distinct endodermis and pericycle. Mainly, there are 2 types of stele which are found in pteridophytes. One is called as protostele and the other one is called as siphonostele. In this diagram, we can see that the stele, which consists of xylem cells and phloem cells and sometimes pith in the center, It is delimited from the cells of cortex by a layer of 1 or 2 thick cell layer termed as endodermis. Now, based on the presence or absence of pith in a stele, they can be categorized into a protostele or siphonostele. A protostele lacks a clear or distinct pith in the center of the stele, whereas siphonostele has a parenchymatous mass of cells or tissues in the center of the stele. Protostele is the most simple and primitive type of stele, both phylogenetically as well as ontogenetically. Such stele consists of a central solid core of xylem. This central solid core of xylem is surrounded by a band of phloem. In protostele, pith is totally absent, and there is a single or multiple layer of pericycle outside the phloem, which is surrounded externally by a continuous sheath of endodermis. In the diagram, we can see various types of protostele. All of these protosteles, they lack any pith in the center. Various different types of protosteles could be haplostele and actinostele, plectostele, or mixed protostele. We will see these different types of protostele subsequently, but the common feature among all these 4 types of stele is that all of them, they lack a central pith tissue. Primitive taxa of pteridophytes like Xylotum, Mesipteris, as well as fossils, xylophytes such as Rhynia, horneophytes show this kind of stele. The protostele gives off leaf traces without any break in the continuity of the enveloping endodermis. With the departures of leaf traces, there is no marked change in the solid xylem core, and each leaf trace is surrounded by its own epidermis. On the basis of the position and shape of xylem, the protosteles can be distinguished into 4 types. The first one is haplostele. Haplostele consists of a solid xylem core with smooth circular outline. This circular outline is surrounded by a ring of phloem. Haplostele can be found in the fossil genera such as Rhynia, Horneophyton, Cooksonia, etc. And also we can see or observe haplostele in living pteridophytes such as Xylotum, Selaginella, Lycopodium, etc. Haplostele consists of a solid xylem core with a smooth circular outline and is surrounded by, you can see the haplostele, it has a central solid xylem core which is surrounded by a smooth circular outline, and this phloem tissue is surrounded by 1 or 2 cell layer thick pericycle and endodermis, and then the outer cortex is there. In actinostele, the xylem forms star-shaped structure with many radiating arms. Here in the diagram you can see the xylem does not have a very distinct round outline. They are having extensions in all the directions and they look like a star. The phloem is present in small patches in between the radiating arms. So, in between the 2 radiating arms we can see phloem tissues in patches between the radiating arms. Now, such type of protostele can be found in Lycopodium serratum and also in some of the fossil forms of pteridophytes such as Steroxylon and Sphenophyllum. In case of plectostele, the central xylem core breaks into one or more less into more or less parallel plates, and each xylem plate is surrounded by phloem. So, here the xylem tissues are seen in broken elongated pattern, and these elongated pattern, they are parallel to each other, and surrounding these xylem are found the phloem tissues. Aerial shoots and cones of the axis of Lycopodium clavatum and Lycopodium volubile does show such type of such type of stele. So, we can see different types of protostele here, and we can have a comparison. We can have a comparison between haplostele and actinostele. The central xylem tissue is radiating in case of actinostele, whereas in plectostele the xylem are broken into parallel arrangements. Now, the fourth type of protostele could be a mixed types. So, sometimes the solid xylem core of the protostele is broken into small groups of tracheids which remain embedded in the phloem. Such type of protostele is found in the stem of Lycopodium serranum. Now, let us move on to the second broad type of stele. The first one was protostele. Now, the second broad group of stele is siphonostele. They are also called as methylated stele. In this type of stele, a pith is present in the central region which is surrounded by the xylem and then phloem. This type of stele is an advancement over protostele. Such stele is found in the stem of most of the ferns of which belong to group Philicophyta. Depending on the presence of vascular tissues, the siphonostele has been recognized into two types: the ectoploic siphonostele and endoploic the ectoploic siphonostele and amphiploic siphonostele. In case of ectoploic siphonostele, such stele xylem encloses and the phloem occurs only outside the xylem. It is present in the equisetum and some ferns like Osmunda and Sycia. Whereas in case of amphiploic siphonostele, the phloem occurs both on the inner side and outer side of the xylem, and a central pith is present. This type of stele is found in Adiantum and Marsilia. In the diagram, we can see a comparative diagrams of ectoploic siphonostele and amphiploic siphonostele. Here we can see that in the central portion there is a pith which is present in both the types of siphonostele. In case of ectoploic siphonostele, the xylem tissue is surrounded by phloem tissues only on its outer side, whereas in case of amphiploic siphonostele, the xylem ring is surrounded by phloem ring on the inner side also, as well as on the outer side also. So, in case of amphiploic, as the name suggests, amphi means on both the sides, phloic means the phloem tissues. So, in amphiploic siphonostele, the phloem tissues are found on both the sides of xylem rings. In the lower diagram, we could see that in case of siphonostele, the leaf traces, they do not make any change. They do not make any change in the xylem column. Whereas in case of solenostele, the xylem column is also bifurcated and there is a distinct leaf gap which is formed. The solenostele could also be of two types, that is ictofloic solenostele and amphifloic solenostele. Now there are certain modifications of siphonostele. Let us talk about those modifications also. It depends on the presence of non-overlapping and overlapping leaf gaps. So siphonosteles can be distinguished into three types, that is solenostele, dictostele and polycyclic steles. So here in this diagram we can see a solenostele. Now let us understand what is a solenostele. A siphonostele with non-overlapping leaf gap is known as solenostele. It can be ictofloic or amphifloic. Whereas when a siphonostele with overlapping leaf gaps with each other is known as dictyosteles. Such stele has many scattered vascular strands and each strand is called as meristele. It is represented by some ferns like Dryopteris, Pteris, Ophioglossum, etc. So in the diagram you can see that a siphonostele, it has multiple or more than one leaf gaps and it is shown as a broken ring of stele. Then such type of siphonostele is termed as dictyostele. Sometimes two or more concentric rings of vascular tissues are present in the stem. This type of stele is termed as polycyclic stele. It is found in some higher ferns, such as two concentric rings of vascular strands are found in Pteridium aquilinum, 3 in Montania pectinia, and 4 in Pteris podophylla and Platycerium aethiopicum. It may be polycyclic solenostele or polycyclic dictyostele. When the outer cylinder is solenostelic, it is called as polycyclic solenostele, whereas in the polycyclic stele, the inner cylinder is dictyostelic. Here in the diagram we can see the comparative the difference between a polycyclic solenostele and a polycyclic dictyostele. Now let us understand another aspect of evolution of pteridophytes, various ways through which the pteridophytes adapted themselves more suitably towards the terrestrial habitat. Now one such adaptation and one such evolution was evolution of heterospores. Now when we talk about heterospory, let us understand that in majority of pteridophytes, a plant produces only one kind of spores which are similar in shape and size. These similar type of spores which are similar in shape and size, they are called as homospores, and this phenomenon is called as homospory, and such genera are termed as homosporous genera. However, in some pteridophytes, in some species, they produce two distinct type of spores which differ in their size. Such phenomena where two different types of spores are found, this phenomena is termed as heterospory. The larger spores are called as megaspores, which are produced in megasporangium. These megaspores are comparatively less in number. The smaller spores are called as microspores, which are formed in microsporangium. The number of small spores is comparatively larger, and the existence or production of larger spores and smaller spores simultaneously in a plant body is termed as heterospory, and the species are called as heterosporous species. The existence of megaspore and microspore could be seen with the help of this diagram, where two different sizes of spores, that is larger spores and smaller spores, they are found on the same strobilus. Their position could be different. The microspores could be found on the upper end or the anterior end, whereas the megaspores could be found on the posterior end, or in case of Selaginella, it could be on one lateral side megaspores are found, and on the other lateral side of strobilus microspores are found. The difference in size of the spores is related to the sex of the gametophyte. A megaspore on germination gives rise to female gametophyte, which produce only archegonia. The microspore on germination gives rise to male gametophytes, which bear only antheridia. This can be understood with the help of this diagram, where we can see that there could be two different types of megaspore produced. The larger spore, that is megaspore, give rise to megagametophyte, which bears only female reproductive organ, whereas the microspore give rise to microgametophyte, which gives rise to which bears only male sex organs. Now, let us try to understand what is the significance of heterospory. Heterospory expresses sex determining capability of the plant. The megaspore is retained by the parent even after fertilization, and this ensures nutrition for the developing embryo. This is an important step towards the seed habit. The development of gametophyte in heterosporous form is endosporic, and the nutrition for the developing gametophyte is derived from sporophytes. Hence, the development of gametophytes is not affected by ecological factors as in case of independently growing gametophytes. In homosporous species, differentiation of sex takes place at the gametophytic stage, whereas in heterosporous species, the differences in size of the spore is related to the sex of the gametophyte. A microspore always gives rise to male gametophyte, and megaspore gives rise to female gametophyte. Thus, in heterosporous forms, the sex of the gametophyte can be predicted at the spore stage only. The heterospory has given certain advantages to pteridophytes. In homosporous pteridophytes, the spores germinate on soil to produce gametophytes that are independent of sporophytic plant, and the gametophytes of heterosporous pteridophytes with much vegetative tissue has to manufacture not only its own food but also for the developing embryo, which is dependent upon it. In a heterosporous taxa, spores germinate within sporangium and gives rise to prothallus. The gametophytes, which is generally reduced, is retained wholly or largely within the spore's wall, depending entirely upon the food and the food deposited in spores. As the gametophytes of heterosporous taxa obtain their nourishment from the parent sporophyte, they are independent of external conditions in comparison to those of the free living gametophytes of homosporous pteridophytes. So, we have seen the evolutionary aspect and origin of heterospory in pteridophytes also. So in this today's lecture, we have seen various aspects of telome theory, stellar evolution, and also heterospory. In the coming lectures, we will try to understand various biological aspects of pteridophytes with the help of certain genera. Thank you so much.